So when you think of the greatest NBA Finals performances of the last 25 years, obviously LeBron in 2016 comes to mind. He came back down 3-1 to win the finals. Shaq averaging 38 points a game versus the Pacers in 2000. And then you had Tim Duncan just putting up crazy stat lines in the 03 finals. But what Dwayne Wade did against the Dallas Mavericks in 2006, that has to be up there.
Leading the Heat back from an 0-2 hole, just being clutch as hell. I mean, young Dwayne Wade was something special.
Before we start talking about Dwayne Wade's insane 2006 NBA Finals, please give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on any new videos. So in 2005, the Miami Heat were definitely Shaq's team. He finished second in MVP voting.
Should've won.
Yeah, should've won it over Steve Nash. They won 59 games. Lost in the Eastern Conference Finals to the Pistons. 2006, this was definitely Dwayne Wade's team.
Oh yeah, 27 points per game, all-star starter for the first time. Even still, weirdly enough, the Heat regressed down to 52 wins. I mean, they had a lot of new pieces, Gary Payton, Antoine Walker, a lot of guys with egos that hadn't really worked elsewhere. But you know what? They beat up on the Bulls in round 1, beat up on the Nets in round 2, and against the Pistons in the Eastern Conference Finals, got their revenge.
This led them to the NBA Finals where they'd face the Dallas Mavericks. And I would say they were like slight underdogs according to betting odds. They weren't like massive underdogs, so the series was kind of a toss-up with a slight edge to the Mavericks. Game 1, though, this was the Dwayne Wade and Jason Terry duel. Wade was cooking early. The Heat took an 8-point lead after the first. He had 13 first quarter points. He had a nice mix of getting to the basket, hitting some mid-range shots. He had a block on Dirk. Things were going well for the Heat, but then they slowed down big time in the second. Jason Terry alone nearly outscored him. He had 12 points in the second. The Miami Heat only had 13.
Nothing like mid-2000s basketball where inevitably at some point in a game, a team's just going to forget how to score for a quarter.
They just cannot shoot.
It always happens. There's always at least one quarter where a team just goes ice cold and scores like less than 20 points.
During the third quarter, though, Wade got back on track, and mainly he had this dunk where he split a double team and just threw it down to Eric Dampier, and it just makes you remember young Dwayne Wade could get up, and he was fast as hell out there.
Well, remember when he was nicknamed Flash?
Yeah, deservedly so.
He wasn't nicknamed just D Wade. He was nicknamed Flash.
Overall, he had 10 points in the third, but the Mavs were up 2 going to the fourth.
Yeah, and in the fourth, the Mavs pulled away. Jason Terry had an 8-0 run by himself, gave the Mavs a 10-point lead. You want to talk about the underrated players of all time? Jason goddamn Terry. Maybe it's just because he always had to come off the bench. This dude was a straight-up assassin.
Yeah, and he would come up huge in big games. Like, it wasn't just Dirk. Jason Terry was the sidekick that would hit some huge shots.
He got it down to 3, but the Mavs end up winning 90-80, take a 1-0 lead. Loss is definitely not on Wade. He didn't shoot particularly well. He's only 11 of 25, but 28 points, 6 boards, 6 assists, 5 turnovers is not a great look, but it's a better look than your bench scoring only 2 points.
Game 2 started low scoring. The Mavericks led the Heat 18-17 after the first. Gotta love those mid-2000s final scores.
Classic. I love it. Not a joke. I wish we got more super low scoring games like this.
Yeah, I kind of do too. And in the second, the Heat still couldn't score. They only had 17 points, but the Mavs had 32, and Jerry Stackhouse came off the bench and said, "Let me get cooking." He had 3 threes in the second quarter alone, and the Mavericks took a 16-point lead going into the half.
34 first half points when you have Shaq and D Wade on your team.
That's pathetic.
I mean, come on. From there on, the game was never close. The Mavs extended the lead in the third quarter. They won by 14, 99-85. Wade was bad this game, but Shaq was worse. Wade had 23 points on 19 shots, and Shaq only 5 points on 5 shots. That's a career playoff low for points, field goal attempts, and field goals made at the time. Might be it for his whole career, actually, but we didn't bother to go check, like, the Cavs and Celtics
we're
years.
going into the weeds on those box scores. scores. We're like, yeah, probably. And now the Miami Heat were facing an 0-2 deficit in the NBA Finals. And at the time, only 2 teams in NBA history had ever come back from that. You had the 1969 Lakers. And then how about this? You got the 1977 Portland Trailblazers, baby.
Hell yeah. An excuse to bring up the 1977 world champion Portland Trailblazers.
It's all we got. And we didn't even have to force it in. It just naturally came up.
It's there, and we're gonna savor it. Game 3, obvious must win for Miami. Early on, they were making an effort to feed Shaq the ball more. I mean, you know, he was hissed in the locker room after game 2. So he scored the first 4 points of the game. After that, Wade got going a little bit. And at the end of the first, Miami led Dallas 29-21. Wade had 13 first quarter points. Teams went back and forth in the second quarter. Heat led by 9 going into half. Then the Mavericks dominated the third quarter.
Yeah, I can't believe this series, like quarter by quarter, it just swung so hard.
I love it.
Fourth quarter, Wade started with a corner 3 to cut the lead down to 6, but less than a minute later, they had to take him out. He committed his 5th foul, and the Heat just were not playing well after that. The Mavericks built up a lead. Jason Terry hit a mid-range shot with 6 minutes left to give the Mavs a 13-point lead, and from here, like, basically felt like the series was over. They're down 0-2. They're down 13 points in the fourth quarter. I'm not sure what the live DraftKings odds were, but probably weren't looking good. If you threw down money on the Heat, called someone up in Vegas at this point, you probably made some decent money.
Well, a 13-point lead with 6 minutes left in 2006
yeah.
was basically insurmountable.
Yeah, that's like a 20-point lead nowadays.
It's like a 25-point lead.
But Wade, he just took over from there. He had a 14-foot bank shot. He got an and 1 to cut the lead down to 8. A James Posey 3 and then 4 straight from Wade cut the lead all the way down to 3. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we got ourselves a game. And with just over a minute left, he had a 20-foot shot to cut the lead all the way down to 1.
After that, some free throws by Udonis Haslem and James Posey gave the Heat a 2-point lead. Devin Harris tied the game at 95, though, with a layup with 33 seconds to go. That set up none other than Gary Payton to hit the game winner for the Heat, the guy who had 2 points in the entire series leading up to this moment. He hits the shot that keeps the Heat alive. And I just love for so many of like the 2000s NBA Finals, a lot of times there's at least one game where just some old ass player hits a game winner.
At least he contributed because he won the championship this year, so he can be like, I hit that shot in that game.
I did something.
Yeah. Dirk would get fouled on the other end, but he'd miss the second free throw. Wade, following that, also missed the second free throw to keep the Mavs alive, but he made up for it with a second left. They threw a lob, D-Wade deflected it, and the Heat would get their first win the series and keep themselves alive.
And an all-time performance from Dwayne Wade. 42 points, 13 boards, 2 assists, a steal was huge for them in the fourth quarter when it basically looked like they were dead in the water.
Another kind of must win for the Heat. This game was a little close after the first quarter, but after that, the Heat just completely took over. And this included outscoring the Mavericks 20-7 in the fourth quarter. 7 points in a finals quarter is the lowest in the shot clock era. I'm not sure how you could do worse than that.
Well, I mean, Dirk, 16 points on 2 of 14 shooting, and maybe this was just how 2000s basketball was at the time. I don't care if he's shooting poorly. I want Dirk to take more than 14 shots.
Yeah, probably. Wade, on the other hand, just stayed red hot. 36 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists. So it looked like the Heat were dead in the water. All of a sudden, we got ourselves a series, and due to the old finals format, Game 5 would also be in Miami.
Game 5, like Game 4, Dirk was not good in the first half, but neither was Wade, so, you know, cancel each other out. First half belonged to Jason Terry and Josh Howard, though. They combined for 38 first half points, and the Mavs had an 8-point lead going into halftime. I mean, Jason Terry and Josh Howard combined for 38 points in a finals game?
Yeah, wouldn't expect that in a first half. And Josh Howard, I mean, he had that nice run of like 3 years, then I don't know what the hell happened to him.
He disappeared.
I've not heard from the guy since. At one point through the second and third quarter, Dwayne Wade had not hit a field goal for over 17 minutes. He'd finally break that slump late in the third, and basically from that moment, it just took one. He was hot as hell.
This is what I was saying about Dirk in Game 4. He's missing a ton. All you gotta see is one go in because Wade went nuclear. He had 17 of the Heat's 23 points in the fourth quarter, hit some massive shots down the stretch. But with 10 seconds left again, Eric Dampier, of all people, has the field goal that puts the Mavericks up.
Wade, of course, would respond, and we'd go to overtime.
OT was back and forth. Gary Payton with another clutch shot with 28 seconds left to give the Heat a 1-point lead. Dirk then responded with just a classic, crazy-ass rainbow fadeaway over Shaq to retake the lead. But then D-Wade drives in, gets fouled, goes to the line, hits both free throws. Heat would win 101-100. I do love at the end of this game, though, when Devin Harris throws up the desperation shot, hits the top of the backboard, and Mike Breen is like, oh, just off, as if he like barely missed it.
Yeah, it was nowhere near the hoop. So now let's talk a little bit about the free throws in this series, because there's a little bit of controversy surrounding this series, not a ton, but there is some. In game 5 alone, D-Wade shot 25 free throws.
That's a lot.
That's the second most ever in a finals game, but you can kind of say it's the most ever because the most in a finals game is Shaq. He had 39 in game 2 against the Pacers in 2000, but that was like hack-a-Shaq, so this was the most ever of just a game playing straight up. They weren't trying to foul D-Wade at all.
Yeah, some people say this was rigged, and I mean, sure, Wade got a lot of free throws, but like, the only reason I could see is like maybe they were trying to establish Dwayne Wade as like their next big star, I guess?
Yeah, or trying to establish a team in Florida because those two teams were new. I don't get that.
Yeah, because Dallas is such a small market.
Exactly. Game 6, back in Dallas, finally, a closeout game for the Mavericks. Now you leave Dallas up 2-0. Now you come back and you're down the series. Luckily, though, they started hot. Dirk had 11 first quarter points. They led by 7 after the first. And the Heat, they actually struggled for most of the second as well. They went on a stretch where they didn't score for 4 minutes.
Oh, I love 2000s basketball. I'm gonna keep saying it, but like, oh, I love it so much.
But to end the quarter, they'd go on a 13-2 run. Talk about choking going to halftime. And they would take a 1-point lead going to half after not playing well in the first, not playing well for the second. They just needed that little stretch, and they took the lead going to half.
Yeah, they held on to that lead in the third quarter. Wade had some great plays on defense, interestingly enough. He had a block on Josh Howard, then a minute later, he had a steal that led to an and one from Antoine Walker. I just love Antoine Walker gives that little shimmy on the ground after he gets the and one. I love it.
Then once again, as he did basically the entire series, Wade was just great in the fourth quarter. He scored or assisted on their first 8 points. He was doing basically everything for them. But credit to the Mavs, they did not go away. Jerry Stackhouse hits a huge 3 with just over a minute left to cut the lead down to 1.
Wade responded with, guess what? Some clutch free throws. But at the end, he nearly choked this game away. He were up 3 with 10 seconds left. He got fouled. He only needed to hit 1 free throw to ice this game, and he clanks both of them.
Just a young player. I mean, you can make them all game, but the pressure's different at the end. And then we need to talk about that Jason Terry shot. Basically the best look you could have possibly gotten.
Wide open.
Maybe even a bit too open. Like Jason Terry didn't expect that. But the shot was so close to going in, but it just didn't quite go in. And I love how Dwayne Wade, he gets the rebound and just chucks the ball to the moon.
Oh yeah, he does. The Miami Heat win their first championship in franchise history.
Yeah. And Wade, he was the obvious finals MVP, the 7th youngest player to win the award at 24 years old. I mean, think about it. He won a finals MVP before Kobe had one, before Dirk had one, before LeBron had even been to the finals. It's crazy to think about it like that.
I mean, 34 points per game, 8 boards, 4 assists, and 3 steals will do that.
Yeah.
Hard to ignore that.
Young Dwayne Wade, the Flash, was just different. So what do you guys think? Where do you rank this performance by D-Wade among the all-time NBA Finals performances? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please consider giving a like. And hey, while you're here, check out some of our other content as well. And don't forget to subscribe to Synthetic Sports.